you had this really awesome story on your Instagram about how you had started selling a garlic croissant. And just like, as someone who loves croissants and loves garlic, I was like, it's like garlic bread and a croissant coming together. That sounds amazing. Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and my guest today is a baker. But if you visit her booth at the farmer's market or check out some of her goods, you're not going to find the traditional chocolate chip cookies or cupcakes or brownies. No, Mia Matlock is creating something a little bit different through her Oso Good Kitchen, and I'm so excited to unpack that and get to know her better. Mia, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan.
So, like I said just a couple seconds ago, your business specializes in baked goods, but it's a little bit different than what most people would come to expect. Can you kind of just, if somebody's hearing about Oso Good Kitchen for the first time, can you kind of unpack what it is and what you sell?
Yeah, so Oso Good Kitchen and Panaderya is a Filipino-American fusion bakery. We started in 2020 as a cottage bakery and a COVID side hustle, and it's eventually kind of grown into it's kind of grown into its own thing now. So we appear at the farmers markets pretty often. A lot of our goods are they start with like a Filipino flavor, and then we work towards like a more Western analog. That's how it's been lately. So like we'll start with the flavors that I grew up with, and then we'll translate it into a cake or a cookie or my personal favorite croissant. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So give me an example of that. Like, how do you decide, okay, I'm taking this flavor, this is where I want to start, and then translate that into something that maybe, just a normal Omaha resident might come to expect?
Well, I'm not going to lie, some of it's literally just like a roll of the dice type of thing. Like sometimes I see things or I remember things and I would say, hey, like that would be neat as a cake. Or like, yeah, I love croissants, so I'm going to turn it into a croissant. But a lot of the times when I create these things, I try to keep it as close to the traditional Filipino, the traditional Filipino model of it. So that way it's not super far from what you'd be enjoying if you went to like a Filipino house or like a Filipino restaurant. So, like, for example, if there is the use of like a spoon or digging, I try to like incorporate that. So for that example, I will try to keep it like in the form of a cake, like something that you could dig into and, divvy up with your friends or whatever,
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I found an example of this on your Instagram that I wanted to specifically ask you about. And I apologize if I butcher the pronunciation of this because I'd never heard of it before, but there's a Filipino dish called, is it sinangag?
There's...
What the garlic croissant is based off of.
Oh, it's called sinangag.
Sinangag, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you said it right. Oh my gosh.
I didn't come close to saying it right.
Well, the second time you came close to saying it right.
Fair enough. I'll take that. But like, you had this really awesome story on your Instagram about how you had started selling a garlic croissant. And just like, as someone who loves croissants and loves garlic, I was like, it's like garlic bread and a croissant coming together. That sounds amazing. And I had no idea before I read this post that there was like a backstory behind it.
Right.
Can you tell that story and just kind of like, just tell that story. Like, where does it come from?
So sinangag is like a Filipino fried rice. It's kind of what we eat as toast, basically. Like Filipinos will eat rice as their main carb source. So sinangag is like a fried rice. It's really simple. It's just rice, garlic, and vegetable oil, really. And you toast it up in a pan, and it goes really well with like eggs and like sausage and stuff like that. But a lot of people have been turning that into breakfast sandwiches. And I think that's so cool because it's like, oh, yeah, you're actually eating it the way that I would have eaten it. Like I had sinangag for breakfast yesterday, and there was like eggs and sausage with it, too. So it's just kind of cool to see how those things like overlap, people's natural tendencies to enjoy things,
Well, what gave you that idea? Because obviously it's not a pastry, so it wouldn't have fit into your business. But if you tried to go to a farmer's market this weekend and sell sinangag, maybe a lot of people would buy it. I'm guessing people would be like, I don't know what that is. But if you present it as, I'm going to take these flavors, but I'm going to put them in a garlic croissant. This is something that seems more familiar, more approachable to people. Like, how do you make that connection in your mind?
Oh, I just present like the Siningag croissant as like garlic bread, but in like croissant form. Originally, I developed that to. Have you met the folks with Carinera?
I haven't. I've had their product and I really like it, but I haven't had it yet.
So like I'm like obsessed with their cracked pepper.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. It's spicy for not having like pepper in it, and I love that. So originally I developed like a savory croissant just so I could eat with their sauce, because I'm a little gremlin and I would just open up the can and just dip the croissant into the can. So that's really where it came from at first, but then I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of similar to how I would make like siningag. That's kind of cool. So that was like a happy little accident on my part anyway.
Is that how a lot of your ideas come, from just happy accidents or just like daily occurrences where all of a sudden something clicks in your brain? It's like, oh, that could be something that I make.
Yeah, absolutely. My brain just is like, well, what if you did that? What if you did that differently? Like, what if this turned into a cake? Which is something that we're actually bringing back for August, actually. Because August is the next month after this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So August is also the hottest time of the year, I think. And so we're bringing back a thing called Halo Halo cake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Halo Halo is like a dessert that's, I don't know, I jokingly say that it's like the dessert for the indecisive. Because like it comes in like this big cup and it's like ice, evaporated milk, random fruit. No, it's not random. It's like mango, sweet beans, jelly, palm fruit, mango, more ice, more evaporated milk, then the same assortment of stuff with ube ice cream and then a piece of flan on top. But you would enjoy it by digging your spoon in and mixing it up, which is what the name means. It means mix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're translating that into either a cake or a trifle for August, so people can, have that experience of digging into it and swirling it around. So, how
important is it to express your heritage through your baking?
I'm kind of annoying. I do it with everything, honestly. For me, baking is really just the medium of how I express myself, but I do it in many other ways too. For me, it's kind of like giving back to the culture that gave so much to me, and baking is just the easiest way of doing so.
So you create desserts that I think most Omahans would never experience, if not for you. You're kind of that gateway for them. And one that I wanted to use as an example is the ube maja blanca, which is a dessert that you had on your social media. Can you describe what that cake is and what makes it special to you?
So the ube maja blanca cake is an ube sponge with a coconut milk, condensed cream, buttercream. It's otherwise known as Russian buttercream. And then it has sweet corn and then toasted coconut curds, which is what happens when you leave coconut milk on a burner for a very long time. The fats and the solids separate, so it creates like these like fried nuggets of savory coconut goodness on it. And that was our summer flavor for 2023. It was actually the first Battle of the Chefs that I catered. Matt reached out to me and he's like, yeah, you want to work with corn? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I want to work with corn. Filipinos love corn. So I just, slapped that. That came together very fast, actually. It's based on a Filipino pudding that's made from just coconut milk and corn. But I was like, well, ube makes everything better, so I'll just put some ube in it.
And what is ube? Because I know that's a very popular... It's kind of a trendy ingredient. We're starting to see it more and more in desserts, but if somebody's listening to this and they don't know what ube is, it's obviously very important in Filipino cuisine. What's ube? Okay,
so ube, for starters, is not a purple sweet potato, even though it's a yam that happens to be purple. It's not an Okinawan sweet potato. Sweet potato.
Little Midwest coming out there,
yeah. It lives in there somewhere. But it's not any of those things that people say it is. Ube is a yam that is native to the Philippines, especially the Cordilleran mountain range in Luzon. It is a yam that is purple with it has a very unique flavver, and I kind of stumble in describing it because there's no way to. It's just its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are 26 cultivars of ube in the Philippines currently. The flavor is typically used by Westerners to flavor cake and lattes, cookies, and such. But like ube in the Philippines is also eaten by itself. We turn it into a jam called ube halea. So we take the ube and cook it down with a bunch of like coconut milk and condensed milk, and it has like this very thick puddingy texture that could be eaten with a spoon or spread. But that's basically what ube is.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. There are some flavors that, like, in your head, you know what it is. Like, if you taste it, you're just like, oh, yeah, that's ube. But then if you have to describe it with words, it's just like, it's ube.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, it's something that you just have to taste to know. But I think what a lot of people probably know ube best for is just that vibrant purple that it lends to not just desserts, but whatever you put it in. Like, it's just a strikingly beautiful color.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if anyone is listening to this and either now or throughout the rest of the conversation, they're just like, holy crap, this sounds really good. I need to get my hands on Mia's stuff because this sounds amazing. We mentioned the farmer's market. You're not in the farmer's market every weekend, but you do update your social media very often to let people know when you are going to be there. Where else can people get Oso Good Kitchen's products?
Sometimes you could find it at Cafe Monster, which is on 84th and Center. It's like a trading card shop with a coffee shop in the back. Godega, both in Exarban and the Old Market, has like 4-inch ube cake celebration cakes. They're $30 a piece, but they're fully decorated and they come with a candle if if you want to celebrate your birthday doing that. But otherwise, we're mostly direct to consumer these days. If we're not at the farmers market, we do porch pickups and deliveries. I live in Midtown, so that's where all of our porch pickups happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And people can get custom cakes. They can order those off your website. And I wanted to ask you about that because I don't remember if it was social media, if it was on your website. Well, I think it was an Instagram post that you had a while ago. And you said when you order a cake from Oso Good Kitchen, you're not ordering a cake. You're ordering a whole experience. What did you mean by that?
Oh, man. Well, I allow people to just kind of go nuts with the requests because I take all of my cake orders the way I used to when I was a practicing artist. That's actually my background is like studio art. So like you could come to me and say, I don't know what I want, and I will help you figure that out. Like even custom orders, I'll draw it out and send it to you. If you have,
Really?
Yeah, if you have like a wedding and you want to customize the colors to match like a dress or a memento from the wedding, I'll work to color match that for you. So that's what I mean by it being like a whole experience. Like I am so detail oriented. I will just I'll go nuts with your order.
Can you give me an example where somebody came to you and it was maybe a half-baked idea, not a fully formed idea, but they were kind of like, I want a cake in this theme and maybe these flavors, and you kind of baby stepped them through the process?
Oh yeah, that used to happen quite a bit back in the day. There's this one person that came to me that was like, my daughter really likes pink. I said, oh, okay. Like I like pink too, but so yeah, I was like, yeah. What do you mean by that? Like, can you send me like what kind of pink? Are we talking powder pink? Are we talking mauve? Are we talking like a Barbie pink, and she said, oh, I want something like this. And she sent me like her party decor, and she sent me the exact shades of pink in that party decor. So I went in through like the Pantone. Are you familiar with what Pantone swatches are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I went through the Pantone book, and I was like, okay, well, according to your decoration, these are your Pantone swatches. Which one would you like? And she's like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful color. It's like, well, you did pick it, but I will help you color match this. And you have a lot of roses in your decor, and they're pretty realistic looking. So I'll hook you up with like at the time it was gum paste, which is like fondant but harder. Mm-hmm. I could do it now in buttercream. I would prefer to use buttercream actually, for anybody listening, because fondant's crazy. Yeah, so I worked with her to match the decor, and she even had like matching cupcakes to the set, and it came out so great.
Well, that was something that was so fun about about going back through your Instagram is you post a lot of different cakes that you send out, and I mean, there's everything from what you just described, like a 5-year-old girl's birthday cake dream, where it's just like pink and explosion and flowers and everything, and then on the opposite end, there's like all black Halloween cakes that would like be perfect at like a goth party, but like that just shows off the spectrum of your decorating ability. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about, because a lot of people can bake, and you can teach yourself to bake, and there's lots of tutorials about how to bake and recipes and things like that. But the decorating side of things, that's something that is a whole different skill set and is very, very difficult to do. How did you teach yourself how to decorate?
It's very similar to like working with ceramics. It's a lot of the same stuff with the whole like turning things, and like the fluidity of buttercream kind of reminds me of like ceramic slip. So it's almost like working with something that I've worked with before. So it wasn't totally like a new thing, but I definitely have been working on it. Like it's not like a exact one-to-one. I'd like to believe that I'm like getting better at it every day. You know, I try to, keep the mind fresh, and, I try to learn new things here and there.
You've kind of touched on this a couple times already, but how much does your background as an art major help you now as a baker?
Oh, it's central to my like practice, actually. Like I really don't love saying this, but like for me, like the hardest part is actually learning the food science. So I think a lot of people start learning the food science like in culinary, or like they know how to cook and then they work towards the presentation, where like I am working on like the presentation and working backwards. But otherwise, like my studio art background does influence a lot of my like standards, my craftsmanship. Like I would treat my orders the same way that I would treat gallery art. It's going out with a certain standard, and if I can't get it, I'm gonna work to get it. My art background is like central to everything that I do, pretty much.
Yeah, I know inclusivity is a big part of your business as well, because all of your products are plant-based and vegan compliant. There are not eggs, dairy, fish, or shellfish present. Why?
Well, when I first started this business, I was a vegan, and now I don't know how to bake any other way. So I don't know if I want to fix what isn't broken at this point. For me to use dairy and eggs, I'd have to learn how to bake again, basically. Like, I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of, like, similarity, but I don't know, this works really well. So I don't know if I want to stop doing that.
Oh, no, I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't if I were you, because, again, you're kind of coming at it from the reverse approach. Most bakers learn how to bake with dairy and eggs and everything, and then when they get requests for vegan cakes, they have to reverse engineer it and figure out, okay, how do I do this? You're coming at it from, I just started there. I'm here.
There's like a weird little flex that I get into it too. It's like, see, that's vegan. You would never know. I mean, I think that's just kind of the like central part of food, is that it should just be good. And then the dietary restrictions and lifestyle restrictions just follow after that,
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I serve both vegans and non-vegans.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's the awesome thing. I'm sure it's like this for you. I've had this experience with both vegan food and vegan baking, but when someone gets one of your products and they don't know that it's vegan and they're not a vegan and they eat it and they're just like, that was so delicious, I love it, and then they learn that it's vegan, they're just like, wait, what? That has to be like the most fulfilling feeling, right?
Oh, yeah. We get it at market sometimes. And I'll just be like, it's all plant-based. Is that okay? And they're like, girl, I don't care, man. Oh, so that's a really cool feeling, actually. Because, I mean, I think we have these ideas of what vegan food is. Like, stereotypically not good. It's dry, or it's like a specter of what it was inspired by. But, I mean, I'd like to believe that my stuff is, pretty close to where it came from.
Well, I would believe that. I mean, I've had a couple of your products, including the cake that you talked about at Battle of the Chefs last year. I would have had no idea that it was vegan, and I had 2 slices of that cake. So,
Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have told you.
no, I'm happy. I love it regardless. Like I said,
Should have saved the secret for today. Just be like, by the way, it was vegan.
it's all vegan. Well, the secret's out now.
Oh no.
Everyone knows, but it doesn't matter because the food tastes so good, and yeah, food tastes good. That's what matters. You had a quote on your Instagram. You said, "Those who know me can probably attest to my obsession with detail. I've broken apart so many recipes and poured over so many blogs to get here. The best part is that it only goes up."
Oh.
Where does your obsession with detail come from, and how does it impact you as a baker?
Oh, I love detail so much. I don't know if I could pinpoint where my obsession with detail came from. Probably the closest would be that my grandfather was an architect and he made a lot of technical drawings. So a lot of my early art practice was watching him draw these little things. And even in my art practice, all of my stuff is very detailed. So it's just a really neat thing to look at something zoomed out, and then look at it, and then there's a world in every inch of, of a composition, really. But when it comes to baking, oh God, my favorite thing to do is I like to go to the library, sometimes multiple libraries, and just get a bunch of cookbooks, and then I'll take apart recipes from each cookbook and compare them to each other, because everybody has their own white cake recipe, everybody has their own what have you, but I'll compare it, and then I'll break it down to baker's percentages to see what works. And then I'll take whatever analog I'm working with as a vegan, and I will try to push the recipe to match theirs, so I can learn how to accommodate other ingredients and stuff like that. It's a little more scientific. It's not formally scientific, but it's as scientific as I can get for somebody not having a ton of food background. So if I had all the money in the world, I'd go to culinary, but in the meantime, that's what I'm doing.
That's such a cool process. Can you give me an example of a dessert that you created based off that process?
Oh man.
Maybe there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. Well, with the croissant recipe, especially that I follow, that's the one that I'm working on right now, is that I actually can't do a whole lot with it that I want to. So I'm going back through my husband bought me these really amazing cookbooks for Christmas. So I have the Culinary Institute of America's croissant recipe, and I've also gone through other books, so I could see where the hydration percentages are, and see what how much butter there is to dough per recipe. And I want to see if I could push that, just because I want to be able to start with a vegan base, but do non-vegan things with it. So that's currently what I'm up to right now. I might even have to make a non-vegan croissant just to see how different it is tactily, So that's my pet project right now. It's a very slow-going thing, especially now that it's peak season and I don't have the time for, extensive digging, but yeah.
Based off your social media, croissants have been, something that's very top of mind for you lately, and maybe you say you haven't perfected them yet, but there are some really good pictures of some cross sections on croissants on your social media, and I think that you're doing a great job. But you had a post recently where you were trying to make pastel rainbow croissants, and the heat was giving you all kinds of problems, and it was causing failures in the bake, and you lost a ton of croissant dough because of this. I would love for you to be able to peel back the curtain and just kind of talk about how difficult that is as a baker, because the atmosphere around you, you have no control over it, and yet it affects you so much, whether it's the humidity, whether it's the temperature. How you bake today could be completely different. If it's 85 degrees today, could be completely different if it's 105 degrees with high humidity next Monday.
Or if it's raining, that kind of throws it off too sometimes.
Yeah. So peel back the curtain. How does that affect you?
Okay, so there are a lot of things that I look at when I do go into croissant making. Most of it is temperature, the ambient air temp. It's great in March when it's not hot. like my ideal air temp is like 68 degrees, which is kind of cold for a house, but it's great for croissant. And then there's also like relative humidity, like how much moisture is in the air. We typically try to shoot for like 30, 38, but we can't control that, especially with it being summer and it raining. There's also the factor of like how cold the table is sometimes, how cold the rolling pin is, how hot your hands are. A lot of times we can't really control all those variables, but sometimes it's literally just a touch and go situation. You know, it's hot in here. Oh, we got to put this in the fridge for a little longer than I normally would, and kind of hope and pray that it comes out. And we've definitely had a lot of failures with croissant, especially like as the seasons changed. Like I think the last time I had a lot of trouble was in May. I lost a lot of middles to them because it didn't proof in the middle, or it overproofed in the middle and collapsed because it couldn't hold its structure. And that was only because I left it in the proofer for 15 minutes too long.
Oh, boy.
I know. So we just recalculate. We try different things, and now they're okay until the seasons change. So I get to figure out what it's like to bake in fall come, September or October.
So not specifically with croissants, but with any of your products, how do you account for and adjust your recipes or your baking process to account for the atmosphere around you? Because if you wake up on let's say you're going to be at the farmer's market this weekend, and you wake up on a Wednesday morning and you're going to make a bunch of ube crinkle cut cookies, and it's raining, you can't just say, well, I'll bake those in 2 or 3 days or whatever. You need to get those done for the weekend.
Right.
So how do you adjust for the atmosphere around you and still be able to come out with a product that you're proud to sell?
Well, luckily, cookies are kind of resilient in that way. Like, they do have to be a little soft going into the oven. So, really, the only thing that we account for when it comes to baking cookies is, like, the time in there. So if it's humid and hot, then I will typically leave them in for a little longer because they start off a little softer. But, or I'll turn up the oven a little bit to make them cook faster. Sometimes when it's really cold, you have to leave them to sit for them to get softer, just in the ambient air temp, mostly just kind of throttling oven temps and bake times, pretty much. The hardest one is bread. Bread is the most temperamental by far, but cookies and puff pastries typically are okay. They're a little more resilient to humidity and temperature. Puff less so than cookies, but puff pastry doesn't rely on yeast to rise, so that makes it a lot easier.
So let's pivot off cookies and puff pastries and go to bread. How do you adjust for the atmosphere when it comes to bread?
If it's hot, you just proof it less, and you work it faster. You don't want it to sit too long at room temperature because then it starts proofing. And I don't want that. So I will shape it, throw it into the fridge for a cold proof for anywhere from 18 to 24 hours. And you typically get a more consistent result out of it that way. It beats having to put it in a hot box for a little while because, you leave it in the hot box too long, it overproofs and you can't fix it that way.
Mm-hmm. So going back to, because failure is a part of learning. And going back to that example I had a couple minutes ago with the rainbow croissants, in your post about that, you said, as far as I'm concerned, this is a career-defining win. What made you say that?
About rainbow croissants. And now I gotta go through my...
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm asking you to recall specific Instagram posts on the spot. But in general, when you make a mistake and you see the failure, how can you pull a victory out of that?
Well, considering that I wasn't making that a year ago, that's a pretty big deal to me because I'm so picky about putting out new things. I don't want to sell it unless it's at least 90% perfect. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, part of, getting better at things is doing it, but I want it to look like I'm doing it right, So I think in that instance, it was like, well, this might suck today, but I'm doing something I didn't do a year ago.
Yeah.
Which means that next year, this will be easy. So, yay. Yay for growth. We love that.
Growth is great.
Right.
Something that I really enjoy about your baking and going back through your previous menus is you are not only not afraid to use ingredients that people wouldn't normally expect in a dessert, but I feel like you kind of thrive off it. So like we talked about corn earlier, we talked about ube, but like some of your other produce that you've used in desserts, asparagus, pandan, apricots, red bean, like I could go on, but what excites you about using ingredients like those, produce that people would not expect to find in a dessert?
Oh man, I think that touches on different aspects of home to me. So like obviously my folks are from the Philippines. They didn't really grow up with the stuff around here. If they enjoyed Midwestern stuff, they had to learn that. So I had a lot of like, red bean or Filipino flavors. So that's like one aspect of home to me. But then like the asparagus actually was, if I get produce, I try to get it from the farmer's market to, support local farmers. It's really important to me. Wherever I can, I will. But it's like, that's also another part of home to me. It's like, my folks with these flavors and then the farmers that live like 25 minutes away from me, So me being able to use that stuff is like, hey, look at me. I'm creating, my own place here, just like my parents did.
What is it like for you to experiment with with some new produce? Like, for example, when Matt from Long Walk Farm comes to you and he's like, hey, how would you feel about making a dessert with corn? I don't know if that's something that you've done previously, if you'd made a corn cake or anything like that, but when you are working with a new ingredient, where do you even start? Where does your brain go? It
goes to Filipino food first and foremost. So, like, with the corn, I was automatically drawn to Maja Blanca. It was just like an obvious thing. It was like corn, Maja Blanca. And, like, for some reason, local corn just tastes so much better than the stuff that's normally in the grocery store, unless that stuff is local, too. But, like, the corn from Long Walk Farm or from, like, Wenninghoff's is just so good. So I said, okay, we need to take this corn and we need to, like, make it the focus of this dessert. So, for me, I just went back to a Filipino-American, or, like, a Filipino analog, and Maja Blanca was it.
Okay, so let's get into your background. Were you born in the Philippines or were you born here?
No, I was born here.
Okay.
My parents, my dad came here in the 70s
okay.
after the war, and then my mom came here like late 80s, early 90s, and then they had me. So we've been living here my whole life. Yeah, this is my home, and it's the only place that I've lived so far. So.
But it sounds like Filipino customs, food, everything was a very, very heavy part of your life growing up. Even though you didn't grow up there, you kind of, in a way, did, right? Oh,
yeah. My parents very much are, you could take the man out of the Philippines, but you can't take the Philippines out of the man, They like to see themselves as being, like, lax. They're like, yeah, we do things that Americans do too. And it's like, yes, you do, but you're also very, very Filipino. You can't hide that. And that's fine. I don't want you to. But, yeah, it was really central to my upbringing. Like, if we ate American food, that was the treat. It was rice, vegetables, pork. And if my parents were feeling kind of adventurous, maybe we'd have pizza.
Whoa.
Yeah. Or Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. That was one of my dad's favorite things to make as a treat. But for the most part, like growing up, all of my diet was very Filipino. The snacks that I ate were very, very Filipino. So all the stuff that I'm making now is really recent as of the past, like however long I've been with my husband, basically.
So let's talk about your husband, because I know he's not. He doesn't have a baking background. He's not, it's not his full-time job or anything like it is yours, but he is an essential part of this business. Tell me a little bit about Ben and where this company would be without him.
Oh my God, Ben. So Ben is, he is the nicest person in the world. That's an objective fact to me. But he is my biggest supporter. He's always been there. He's always the kind of person that's like, how can I help? How can I help? And with Oso, he in the kitchen, if I ever call him in, he washes dishes, which is like a huge deal because sometimes that takes a long time, you know. He'll put labels on things or package things. And then he also is my market manager. He's just got a really good customer service face. So he serves as my main salesperson at markets, and he sets up and tears down. He's really good at selling. He's better at it than I am, I think.
How important is it to have that? Because those are two very different skill sets to be a great baker, but you have to be able to get the word out there and let people know that this great baking exists. So to have both the baking and the marketing side, even if it's coming from two different people, that's essential to your business, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I love the visual aspects of baking. Like I will make all the graphics for all my stuff. I'll make all my stuff cute. But then like by the end of the week, I'm like, honey, I need help. Can you sell for me? Because there's something about it. Like his warmth and his charm. You know, he really lures people in, and he's really approachable. And I mean, I'd hate to frame it this way, but sometimes, you know, he does that better than I do at the end of a long week. So he's so invaluable, you know. It also just really helps to not feel completely alone while doing this, because this is hard. Like, running a business is probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. So for him to be like, you know, how can I help? I'm like, that's great. You know, it warms my heart. And I also have a lot of really great friends, too, so I don't feel alone.
How did you get into baking originally?
Well, when I was a kid, I liked to bake box cakes. My parents were the type of people that use the oven as a storage, you know. Yeah, they would use it to make pot roast sometimes, but otherwise they just like cram pans and stuff in there. But yeah, I really liked to make box cakes when I was a kid. And then I don't know, like when I was in college, when Ben and I got our first apartment, we didn't have a TV, but his mom was like, you need this book, which is The Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer. This thing has been, you know, republished and updated like 10,000 times. It's got to be. And she's like, well, you need this book. So we didn't have cable, so we just baked a lot. And I was like, oh, so you could do all this from scratch. What if we made like a cherry chocolate cake? What if we made pinwheel cookies? So that's what we did for like the first 3 or 4 months of Ben and I being together, was just cooking.
At what point because you mentioned in 2020, that's when Oso kind of got started. At what point in your life did the idea, maybe you didn't execute on it yet, but at least the idea of like, what if I actually started making baked goods and selling them? When did that enter your mind?
Oh, I think it was born from like COVID panic, honestly. Like I knew that I wanted to like start a business because I was really unsure of, I think everybody was unsure of where the world is going to be at, you know? So I figured, you know, I'm going to take all the extra money that I have and just reinvest it into a business because, I mean, worst case scenario, it turns into something fun and it gives back to me in 5 years, which is almost always how businesses tend to go. So for me, I was like, well, you know, one thing that I can sustainably do forever is baking. And people need food, so yeah, I guess baking's going to be the thing, because it was just for fun back in the day, but now it's like my life.
So you said in an Instagram post, I feel like I'm just reciting your Instagram to you, but you have so many good posts on there.
You know what? I'm just glad that somebody reads that stuff, because like sometimes I sit at the computer, I'm like, who's reading this?
Well, it's me, because this information was very helpful with some of my guests. I try and do my research, and there's just like nothing there. And you, Mia, you're just like, oh, here it is. Here's an open book, and I'm just like, thank you.
Oh, that's good.
So thank you.
I'm glad it makes you happy.
But you were talking about, this was an appreciation post for Ben, and you said going full-time with Oso was the scariest thing I had to tell him. So take me back to that conversation. What do you remember about telling him, hey, this little COVID side hustle that I've been doing, I think I want to do this full time?
I think this is something that I really struggle with, like personally. I am very conscious about the money that I make. I want to feel like I'm contributing to the house. So I'm like, oh, okay. Conventionally that looks like a 9 to 5, big girl professional job. You work for somebody else, you bring home a paycheck or whatever. So like when I started Oso, I was like, oh my God, we're not going to have like consistent income for like the first 2 years. And I really want to maintain this way of living that we're doing. And what if he doesn't like it? What if I don't like it? And I waste all this money that I've invested or whatever, So I told him, I said, honey, I think I'm going to take Oso full time. I'm not going to go back into the art field because it's not that I didn't like the art field. It just didn't feel as fulfilling as I wanted it to. And he was like, oh, okay, that's fine. What can I do to help? There's that phrase again, I was like, are you okay? What's going on?
You don't have any more questions? You don't want to talk about this more?
You're not going to wonder how this is going to work? Like, we'll figure it out. What a time. Oh my gosh.
So like, yeah, I want to ask you about your feelings then, because I'm sure like, and you just said it, you had a lot of doubts where it was like, this sounds great to do Oso full time, but is it going to be consistent income? Am I going to like this in a few months? Is this going to work? And to have the person that you trust most come back and just be like, yeah, let's do it. What did that do for your confidence?
I think I dissociated from it at first because it's like, what do you mean we'll be okay? Like, you're not mad about this? I think there's a little bit of like, I don't want to say immigrant brain because I was born here, but there's a level of scarcity I think that lives in my mind. That I think a lot of immigrants do have when they come over here and how they live their lives, not all, but certainly some. And I was like, oh gosh, we gotta know step by step, and we gotta have the safety nets. And at the time, I didn't really have that. And Ben was like, well, we'll figure it out.
So what did you do to launch it from, hey, this is just a side hustle where I'm just kind of selling cakes and everything, to this is a full-blown business. This is what I'm doing now. How did you level up?
Oh, man. So in the very beginning, I was very, we were delivering almost exclusively, like contactless. We were just dropping stuff off on people's porches. We would drive so much in a week just to get people what they'd want. Yeah, I mean, the delivery was really the first medium in how I got my things out there. And then I started adding birthday cake to the menu. Then we got a lot of cake orders from that. And it just got to a point where, like, my kitchen at home is very tiny. And the thing that actually broke my mind was the amount of dishes that I had to do. Because it's like, okay, I knew I had to graduate from my house into a commercial kitchen because I couldn't use the counter if I didn't wash the dishes. But then I also need the counter to dry the dishes. I said, this isn't working because I'm working 12 hours a day just washing dishes and waiting for them to dry. It's like, okay, people definitely want this. We could figure out growing it later, but we gotta ditch this situation and move up. So I applied to Kitchen Council in 2022. Yeah.
You moved in 2023.
2023,
so,
yeah.
Applying in 2022, probably accurate.
Well, actually, I applied in June.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I applied in May and then got the walkthrough in June. And then all the paper finalized in August. So I was actually quite surprised by it. Like, because, Kitchen Council is very discerning in who they bring in. And I was like, this is such a niche concept, it's probably not even going to thrive. But, whatever, I'm just going to pitch the application out there. And, Holly was like, this is a cool idea. Let's give you a tour. We'll start you in on nights and weekends. Are you okay with that? I was like, yeah. Just get me a bigger sink and a bigger counter.
So for those who don't know, Kitchen Council is a commissary kitchen, a shared kitchen space in Council Bluffs. And Holly, who you just referenced, Holly Benson, she used to be the head of that. But it's such a cool place, and so many awesome pop-ups have either started there or still operate out of there.
Right.
You mentioned Carinara, there's O Cookio's, Bluebird Bakery, Chef Around the Block. I mean,
Veg Edible started out of there too.
Veg Edible, yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say Carter and Rye. I don't think they started there. Regardless, so many awesome businesses have started there. I mean, you mentioned just kitchen space was a huge thing.
Right.
But what else about Kitchen Council allowed you to take Oso from this level, it's pretty good, to where, okay, we're really leveling up here?
Mostly my friends. It's really scary to, I think, go into a room in which you've never been in. And almost everybody in that room is either further along in their path than you are, because you had just started, or they come from that culinary background and they've like pivoted into their own careers. So like being in there is like threatening in the best ways, because you can see where you could go. So like for the first 6 months, I was just asking around like, hey, how'd you get in there? How'd you get into that place? Where's that event? Where can I apply? So I think, a lot of where I am now is because of my friends.
Tell me a little bit about that process that you just talked about, because that's something that's very prevalent on your Instagram. You were, and still are, everywhere. I mean, it's like, yes, you've been in some farmers markets, but you've done pop-ups in front of the Greenhouse in Little Bohemia, Handmade Omaha, Nebraska Brewing Company, Midwest Fest, Pride on the Green. I mean, I could literally go on for like 10 or 15 minutes about, there are probably more places in Omaha that you haven't popped up than ones that you have popped up at. But that's kind of the hustle, right?
Oh,
like when you're
definitely.
a new business, you have to be anywhere and everywhere. Tell me about that strategy. How did you get yourself out there early on?
Well, some of those events were definitely like suggested to me by friends because they were on the like organizing committee. Like my friend got me into Pride on the Green because they really liked my stuff. So that's how I got into that. Bancroft Street Market was referred to me by one of my regulars. In the beginning, she's like, "This is really good. I think you should apply to this because, I think it would do really well there." So I was like, "Oh, that's terrifying. I've never, sold at a 2-day event." And this was like a big deal back in the day. I was like, 2-day events. Okay, let's do it. But a lot of the way that I get into places is just through people that I know or people that I've met doing this. So that's kind of cool. I get around surprisingly.
You get around a lot.
I know.
But that's a good thing, because you have to be out in the market getting in front of people. I mean, as great as it is for some crazy person like me to be scouring your Instagram pages and looking at everything, most people don't do that. And it can be hard for a business to get their name out there. So you really just have to take every opportunity that you get to say, oh, somebody says, "Oh, do you want to sell here?" You got to say, "Yes, that's an opportunity to get my product in front of however many eyeballs are going to be at that event. I got to do it."
Yeah, I'm turning into a homebody kind of as like a business owner. I kind of default to the events that I've done before and that I've done really well. Like we do really well in at the farmers markets at this point because we've been there a lot. Mm-hmm. But we do really well in Little Bohemia and Nebraska Brewing Company. So like Little Bohemia also includes like the like Little Bohemia Spring Flings or like the 1, 2, 3, 4 markets, but also it includes Bancroft because it's like in that general area. But then, we've also been like making a lot of progress in like West Omaha with the Nebraska Brewing Companies. West Omaha was at one point the hardest, like it was once the hardest place for me to get into just because it was so big, and I'm beginning to learn that, like, just because you live in Bennington doesn't mean that you're willing to drive into Elkhorn or whatever that is. Is that Papillion where the Nebraska Brewing Company is? La Vista?
Yes, yeah, La Vista.
Yeah.
Papillion, La Vista.
So that was an interesting thing to learn. We're always learning new things about this business.
So what was it, especially in the first couple months and years before, and I'm sure this still happens to you, but it probably happens less now, but like when you're first selling your products, and like we've talked about, they're different than you're going to find at any other farmer's market stand or just stands at other events. When people are coming up and they're taking a look at your products and you're explaining what they are to them and then they're tasting them, what were some of those first conversations and reactions like?
Oh, some of them are kind of wild. We used to get a lot of like winces or like what? So we relied on sampling like cookies for a long time. Probably like the first year we relied on samples to get by. For some reason, it seems like we always have to like gain their trust first. It's like, see, it's not completely, out of the ballpark of what you've typically enjoyed. It has blueberries in it, or it's a peach mango. You've eaten those things independently. Now you can smash them together as a puff pastry, So we've made a lot of ground in like customer trust lately. But yeah, I'm sorry, I like lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. Just talking about. Actually, you answered the question perfectly, but just talking about like people's reactions and how you got them kind of over the hill to trying things.
I think largely too, with us being around so much and like providing like a variety of things, they're just like, okay, well, if I don't like this, then I can just get that, I mean, I try not to throw people in the deep end too fast, so there's definitely, I try to have something, a little bit for everyone, I believe.
So what is that feeling like for you when somebody comes up to your stand and you see the wince or you see the questioning face where it's kind of like, ube cookie, I don't know about that. And you're like, no, here's a sample. And they try it and you can see like that light click on where it's like, oh, this is good.
Well, we've had it all. We've had, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is great. We also had a child cry and call it spicy, so I don't know where that came from. But
that's an interesting palate.
Yeah, we've had a variety of reactions to the flavors, and honestly, sometimes it's just a matter of like, okay, we can't control how people react to this, but we can control how we, represent the product and how we show up if people, however they're going to react to it.
Mm-hmm. Your first farmers market, or downtown farmers market, was May 11th of 2024. When I bring that day up, what do you remember most about that day?
I remember being really self-conscious because, we had one table, one blue tablecloth, and an acrylic baking case, which is great for inside, which I'll get to. There were so many people. It was a lot bigger than what I was used to. And when the market bell rang, I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? But we learned that farmers market attendance is like a bell curve. So closer to open, there's like, a few people there, but it picks up around 11 and then, tapers off towards close. So like the first day I was like, nobody's coming, nobody loves me. Where is everybody? And it was just like a roller coaster of emotions. Like we had everything in this acrylic case, and at the time rotating booth was in the sun, so the acrylic case started to trap all the heat and things started to melt into it. So we were like, open the doors. Like I don't want to sell melty soft products, at my first farmers market. And we struggled with that. And then when market picked up at like 10 a.m., everybody was here for it. They're like, oh my God, you're here. I remember when you were delivering. And I think in that moment, it was like, okay, running this business is really scary, but it'll be okay.
And you sold out.
I did.
That first day.
Yeah, I didn't know how much to bring, so I was like, oh, I guess I'll just, bring what I brought to Sheelytown, because Sheelytown I sold at, and I had like rough numbers in my head for these little events. And I said, we're just going to bring that to market, and we sold out of that. And every time I ballpark like more product for the next one, we keep selling out. I'm like reaching the limit of what I can do as one person. So I am hoping to trade more hands to make more.
So I was going to ask you, what is the future of Oso in your eyes? Is it always going to be you? Is it going to be you and Ben? Is there a brick and mortar in the future? And I know you probably don't have the answer to this question, but just like as you look into the future, what do you see?
Oh, that one is kind of a tough thing because
Sure.
I think my dreams are so lofty for it, I do want to introduce like coffee at some point because I also learned that the Philippines has enough regional, like ecological variety to where like they can grow all 5 kinds of coffee. And we actually went to this place in California that only serves Filipino coffee. Like it's sourced from the Philippines. So I do eventually want to source Filipino coffee for this. So it's like a pastry and, I don't know, you could get a little cup of coffee there.
Coffee and croissants.
Yeah.
Sounds delightful.
One of my, like, biggest dreams, and I don't know how to get there, but I'm thinking about it actively, is I really want to run, like, a pastry van. Like this cute little purple pastry van. Just walk up, and you can get, like, it's like a walking or like a mobile farmer's market booth. It just sounds so fun, you know?
It does.
But I think the grand vision of this that has remained mostly the same is that like I want to start sourcing ethically Filipino ingredients. Like I want to make sure that what I get actually supports the farmers back in the Philippines. Because I mean, what's the point of doing all this and sharing your culture if you're exploiting, you know, if the farmers aren't represented and you're just relying on exploitation to make your dream happen. That doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. So I really want to learn more about that because I've, you know, dug around and done some research into other businesses just around the country. Like I learned that there is one chocolatier in Chicago that sources ube from the Philippines. Like he imports it. He works with the Philippine consulate to get things imported.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I really want to do that. Now the issue is how do I do that? You know, creating the map of how to provide for this business the way I want.
They're very lofty aspirations, but noble ones.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You're doing great. Something that I know your parents did growing up, we kind of talked about how they were great at cooking, maybe not so interested in baking, but when they did cook, they would make like copious amounts of food and you guys would eat, but you wouldn't be able to finish it all. But they would like purposely make too much so they could package it and then go give it to friends and family.
Oh, yeah.
How does that inspire you? How does that come out in your business today?
Well, and I think it's less about the food than it was about the spirit.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
The food is the forward-facing, like frontward aspect of that giving. It's like my folks in general were just so generous, you know, and they weren't rich, but they still gave, you know, and they didn't care who they gave to because it's like that never affected their generosity, you know. So in this business, like I try to be, I mean, as inclusive as I can be. So we're like pro-immigrant, we're pro-LGBTQ. I will serve anybody and everybody in my community. And I really want to give back in that way, as my parents did to their friends and family. And that spirit of giving is just so important to me.
I love that. Mia, I've got 2 more questions for you that I like to ask just about everybody who comes on the podcast. First one here is, what is one thing about baking or being a part of the baking industry that you think most customers don't understand, but you wish they did understand? I'm sure you could go in 1,000 different directions with that.
Yeah, one thing that probably could be known about this business is that it's not. Okay, how do I put this? Because I don't want it to sound messed up, you know. Just because it looks easy doesn't mean that you can.
Yeah.
You know, like we get a lot of, not a lot. It's a lot less than it used to be. Like, why don't you? Advice like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's like, because I'm one person. And for me to learn what you're talking about, for me to add the inventory, there's like a lot of logistical aspects that go into every request. And I think that's one thing that, you know, a lot of non-business owners don't see, you know. So when people, you know, suggest stuff, which I am always open to listening to, it's how the business grows. It's just like there's a lot that goes into what you're asking for, and I'm trying my best. I'm one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when they're asking for new products. Like, you know, you mentioned you're in the middle of a months-long croissant journey here, and you haven't reached the finish line. Like, to sometimes I'm sure developing a new product can be relatively easy, or maybe it's just adjusting a current recipe you have, but sometimes you have to learn something completely new and you have to go to a bunch of libraries and bring the books together and learn it all. Like, it's not just, oh, now I know how to, make a whatever it is, specific type of cake. Like, there's a lot of learning that goes into that.
Yeah.
And then to get you out of here on a positive note, what's your favorite thing about being a part of the baking industry?
Oh, just the friends that you'll make. Oh, I've made so many friends doing this. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, I worked out of my house relatively alone for like 3 years. So, like, when I got out there and I was just asking people questions, like, that was so valuable to me. Like, I made so many friends. How cool. There's so much advice that people are just willing to give to. Like, I thought going into this that everybody was just going to, like, white-knuckle all their advice. Like, no, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want you to grow. You're my competitor. Why would I want that, But I'm finding that no one really feels that way. Like, we're all just, like, one community. And, it really means a lot when we're all trying to lift each other up because we all know how hard it can be, So the community is like 100% the best part.
I love that. And I'm sure that you're passing that on to others now too, especially in that shared kitchen council space.
Oh, I try my best, yeah.
Yeah. Well, your product is fantastic. I first experienced Mia's baking at Battle of the Chefs and immediately was just like, okay, this person clearly knows what they are doing when it comes to baked goods. I cannot wait to experience more. Like, just going through your Instagram, I was like drooling. I was just like, I want this bento cake, and I want this garlic croissant, and I want this cookie. I mean, it was just fantastic. People, if you're going around the farmer's market and you see Oso Good Kitchen, stop by, say hi, grab some awesome desserts, and go on Mia's Instagram, go on her website, and check it out. There's so much good stuff to find here, and it's an exploration in flavors. If you don't know what ube tastes like, we can't tell you, but you can taste it in her food, and that's the beauty of it. Mia, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is great.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.